down to our view. It's our position from a seat of poverty. I am the program coordinator, Val Whitney, for the Women's Co-op. Today I have with me Mia Henry, recruiter and training candidates. And I have Steve Frisbee. Steve is running for the state representative seat in our area. To start this, I want you to know that Women's Co-op is not allowed to back or to fund any campaign. Mr. Frisbee is just here for voting information. We think it's very important that everyone in our community has their vote counted. So welcome, Steve.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. So tell us a little bit about who Steve Frisbee is.
So I'm the Vice President at Life Care Ambulance. I've been there. Last week I completed my 40th year and began my 41st year. I'm still a paramedic. I can actually respond to calls, and I did for quite a while. Until the fall of 2022, have to fill in on the ambulance quite a bit because of staffing shortages, which is not uncommon still in the industry of EMS. But I've been there for 40, and married, Lorene, and we have 4 kids, adult kids. 2 of them are married, one's engaged, another one, and they all live right here in the Battle Creek area. And then our other son, oldest son, lives up in Sanford, and he's an engineer in Bay City.
Nice.
Yeah.
So we wanted to ask some questions about voting and how it would affect our folks. So one of the things that we ask some of our folks, and they came with, what made you want to run for state representative?
Well, I'll go back to when I first ran as a county commissioner in 2009 and 10. I ran in the 2009 10 election. I just didn't like the policy decisions being made in this country and in the state at the time. And watching the nightly news became an event at my house, and one my wife didn't really enjoy. And one night she stood up, turned the TV off, and said, either sit down and shut up or get involved. I'm tired of listening to you. You sound like you have a lot of good ideas. And she said, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I'm going to run for office. And she said, what? I said, I don't know, I'll figure it out. And that led me to running for county commission, and I've been a 7-term county commissioner, and will finish my 14th year on the commission at the end of this year in 2024. Can't run for both places, so I had to give that up, which was one of the considerations that made me struggle to run for the State House, because I do enjoy being a county commissioner. But some of those same emotions started to be evoked out of me this past year of what's gone on in Lansing, and I call it the madness in individual liberties and bad spending choices. It just doesn't seem like it matches what most of what I know of Southwest Michigan and Calhoun County to believe in, and it was time. So I decided to enter the race with the full intent of winning.
Awesome. So what's one of the things that you're most passionate about in regards to your platform?
Common sense. And Val and I have worked together at Community Action for many years on the board together. And, when we first met, we thought we were mortal enemies.
Yes.
We figured out quickly we weren't, and we had a lot of the same goals. And that's what my direction in life has been, is figure out where the goal is and how can we get there together. We may not agree on everything, but if we have good goals and sound approaches, we can get a lot of stuff done. And we became good friends as a result. And there were a lot of good changes at Community Action as a result of you and I and others believing in the direction we thought we needed to go. And a very rewarding time. And so that's kind of, common sense becomes uncommon at times. And
right.
When you think about some of the legislation that's been passed in the last year in Lansing, a lot of unintended consequences, or not caring about the other consequences of what happens when you install some of these laws and take away local rights and things like that. So that's what drives me. It's making good decisions in a common sense way that helps the citizens of the district and the state of Michigan.
So we have a presidential primary coming up.
Yep.
And then
It's ongoing right now.
It's ongoing right now. And then we'll have the electoral primary that comes up in August.
Yep.
So we know as citizens of Battle Creek that it's important that our voice is heard. But why is it so important that we vote in the primary and not just in the November elections?
Well, in the primary, if there's multiple people on the ballot, you want to be able to vote for the person you support the most, and they have to make it through the primary process to get to the November ballot. So voting in the primary is just as important as it is in the November general election. If you want the candidate to be on that ballot for your choice in November, they have to make it through the August primary.
So is there someone that's running for the same position as you in the same seat, in the same Republican seat?
I looked on the Michigan Elections Commission page today. There's nobody else that's filed with the State Elections Commission, which is a requirement. There is one person that filed locally, but they'll have to follow through with the State Election Commission, as far as I know.
Okay, and so it's
we'll see.
important to do your research as to who you're voting for, what their platform is, and how they plan moving forward, what their ideas are of what
Yep.
our community should look like.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. So why should the members, so Women's Co-op serves about 450 families a year.
Yeah.
And we just added a new wing of case management for men. So why should the women and men that we serve, the families that we serve, who are potentially enmeshed in poverty and fighting and struggling just to make things meet, why should those folks vote at all? And is their vote even counted?
Oh, their vote's always counted. There's a lot of rumors about votes not counting, but every vote counts. Every vote gets counted. The election integrity is always a question, especially in the last several years. A lot of innuendo and rumors started by both sides, which is unfortunate in creating mistrust. I think there have been laws enacted and steps taken. In Calhoun County, the county clerk, Kimberly Hinckley, does an excellent job at overseeing elections in a clean process, making sure that every vote counts. So why should they vote? Policy matters, right? And the reason I love the Women's Co-op and have for years, and why we joined forces, is that I view that as a hand up.
Correct.
Right? And I've said forever, I will give anybody a hand up I can. If you give people a handout, that's all they expect. And they become dependent upon it. I'm a firm believer, and your group is a great demonstration of that people want to be successful on their own and not rely on others to have them be successful in life, being able to pay their rent or pay their mortgage and buy food and pay their utilities and have good clothes on their kids' back in a reliable transportation mode. People strive to want to be there, and your group, the Women's Co-op, has always tried to lead people in that fashion so they are independent. The systems we have in place now seem to dissuade people from getting better. So I've said for years, you move forward and you get a job through the Women's Co-op after your training, and all of a sudden you've got a job and they just yank the rug out from underneath you.
Right, the benefit cliff.
Yeah, and so what's better, to go back on the benefits or to have maybe less on a job? Well, when you're a mother or a father and kids in the home, it becomes a business decision. And what's the
Absolutely.
easiest way for me, or the best way for me to give my family a secure environment? It shouldn't be that way. We should help people get there. So you get a job, we should start rolling them back, the benefits.
Right.
Until you can stand on your feet. There shouldn't be a forever, but there should be a time period as they roll back that you are able to stand up on your own and build some reserves in savings and build some reserves and ability and expand your workforce capabilities and get better paying jobs and things like that. Instead of just yanking that rug out, we need a system that says, hey, this person's trying to get ahead, man or woman. Let's just start pulling it back slow and give them a firm foundation to stand on versus that benefit cliff that you talk about.
Right. And we talk with our members about that a lot.
Yeah.
You know, it's pros and cons to you going to work. It's pros and cons of you not going to work. If you're receiving benefits right now and it's cash assistance that you're receiving, they want you to try to find a job. But
Right.
as soon as you do gainfully become employed, there's no warning or reason.
Yep.
You turn in your first 2 paycheck stubs, and then the next
Yep.
benefit, it's gone.
And if you don't have a good skill that gets you into a higher paying job, it's easy to say which is better, having cash assistance or a job that's not going to pay me well because I don't have a skill that can bring a higher wage.
Right.
It's an easy choice.
So, I mean, if you're taking training and you are in a job where you're making minimum wage, which is now 1033, I believe.
Something like
if you're
that.
making minimum wage, the devastation of losing those added benefits is huge.
Yeah.
But if you're in a job, say, where you're making $15 an hour, it's still not as important for you to have all of the benefits, but it still is as important for
Yep.
you to have. You don't know how to, you've gone from having $10.33 an hour to now I'm making $15 an hour. How do I budget those things? How
Yep.
do I work with those? So co-op tends to try to do
Yeah.
all of that.
And again, policy matters because when you're making $10.33 an hour, you're still paying taxes.
Right.
Now, you may get much of that back at the end of the year, but you're not going to see it in your paycheck.
Right.
So policy matters, and things like our tax increase recently, of the tax decrease, that was a small one, but smalls add up to big ones.
Right.
And it was reinstated, and we're back to the level we were 2 years ago.
Right.
So it impacts people's paychecks, and you have to think about that as a legislator and as a governor. How do my decisions impact everybody that I represent, from the 1033 minimum wage earner to the person who's making hundreds of thousands of dollars? We need to treat them all fairly, right? And I like to say the fair's in Marshall, second week of August, go have fun. But fairly in the sense that everybody should be a contributing member to society at an equal level, right? And people who are contributing to society tend to care about what's going on in society.
Right.
When you have no skin in the game in taxes and things like that, you tend to just not pay attention. And that's where I think we make a mistake as a society, is people should be equally assessed taxes at a percentage, and it will make people care about how those tax dollars are spent. And they don't want to see waste.
Right.
Right? And your version of waste and my version of waste can be vastly different, but I think we all see real waste at times and go, why are we spending dollars on that? Why am I driving down a county road that's full of potholes when we're spending dollars on this program over here?
Right.
Yeah.
So our last question, and then I'll let Mia talk, I swear.
Oh, no, you're fine. You're fine. I'm enjoying listening.
Our last question is, with all the redistricting, can you speak to the fact as to whether or not that's affected the votes in Calhoun County and how it's affecting those?
It's not necessarily affected the votes in Calhoun County, but it has across the state. The Citizens Commission on Redistricting was an attempt to take it away from a political situation. The reality is it was still political. And if you look, they got themselves into trouble. They were sued successfully because they disenfranchised black voters in Detroit specifically. They made it look like a pie, but the points of the pie came into Detroit. So take small pockets of high population density of African American black folks and put them with everybody else. So instead of having a representative district of a high density population of black African Americans, now all of a sudden they're distributed throughout all these districts. And the State Redistricting Commission was challenged and lost that. So they're having to redraw those districts right now. So politics is everywhere.
Right.
You know, it could be at the Community Action Board, it could be at the county board, it could be at the city commission, it could be in the legislature, it could be, certainly, we know it could be in Washington, D.C. So when you try to say you're taking politics out of it, I kind of laugh and go, well, there is always politics, right? But can they make good decisions? I think the intent of having citizens draw the districts wasn't bad. The reality is they didn't put enough constraints on them and follow the rules close enough that the laws already established about disenfranchisement. And that never should have happened. How did they get there? They had attorneys advising them. They had folks helping them that have been through these processes. They should have known those laws inside and out before they ever started.
Right.
So in Calhoun, I don't think it's greatly affected votes. There are 2 state house districts that represent Calhoun County. There's an upside down U that is Battle Creek and goes up into Bedford, Penfield, Convis, Lee, Sheridan, Clarence Township, and then drops down into the city of Albion. The rest of it is a little bit disconnected and disjointed because it is connected with the west side of Jackson, the rest of Calhoun County, and the very eastern portion of Kalamazoo County. So you have to have them balanced, with a close amount of population, so population centers affect it. Marshall is in the other district, the city of Marshall. The 2 largest, the 3 other cities in Calhoun County, including Springfield, Battle Creek, and Albion, are all together, and one city is left to the other district. It's kind of strange.
Yeah, it does. I mean, you have to get to Marshall before you get to Albion, so that's
Yeah.
weird.
Yep.
So pretty much the constituents, if elected, that you will be representing are the constituents that were affected by the decisions that were made by the board that you were on, of the county commissioners, correct?
Yep. Yep, that's part of the district that I live in. So I've represented the 4th district as a county commissioner, and that has been Bedford, Penfield, and Convis Township
Okay.
from the beginning and continues today, even after the redistricting. My district did not change.
Okay. So let's talk about Steve Frisbee, the life care guy. So you say you've been there almost 40 years. Well,
No,
you've been there for
40,
almost
yeah.
41 years now. You've been there starting on your 41st year. What are some of the things in our community that you've seen from that perspective?
Well, when you go into other people's homes, you certainly see a perspective that most people don't, right? So police officers, firefighters, paramedics, EMTs, we're invited into homes, and you see how people live and what they're forced to make decisions about, food and medication. They're sick because they can't afford their medication. Their family's hungry. They're relying on others for food. They're living in a dilapidated place that needs some work and they can't afford to do it. Leaky roof, whatever. So you get to see all sides of the community, and it made me understand that we're all equal as humans. We're not all equal in what we have, right?
Right.
And it's not my job to create that equalness, but it's my job to set the table that you can become an equal performer in the community given the opportunity, if you take the opportunity yourself. We shouldn't discourage or hinder anybody from being successful.
And so if someone was interested in working for Life Care Ambulance, they could. Do they apply via your website?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Lifecareems.org.
Okay.
We are a nonprofit, have been for years. We now are affiliated with Emergent Health Partners out of Ann Arbor, which makes us one of the largest, if not the largest, ambulance service in the state of Michigan. Collectively, we have over 900 employees, so fairly big organization, yet the life care operation is still focused on the operations that we've always had here. We have a board of directors that's focused on life care. That board reports to the EHP board. So, we have everything, opportunities for folks that are licensed and unlicensed. If you want to work on an ambulance, you have to be an EMT or a paramedic. I'm a paramedic, and that's the highest level of training you can have in the state to be able to work on an ambulance. So I get to do all the fun stuff, and I explain it like this. Your worst day as a citizen is my funnest time. That's what I was trained to do. And most people are running in, we're running out, we're running in, going, hey, how can I help? And
Right.
we see things that folks don't necessarily, they think they want to see until they see them.
Right.
And so that's the difficult part of it. But you also know that you're making a huge impact on people's lives potentially. And that's the fun part of it. You'll never convince me that being a paramedic isn't the funnest job in the world.
I don't know. You could convince me that really easy. I'm not a blood
Yeah.
girl.
Yeah, I don't want to watch it happen. Like
Right.
when you see a broken leg in football, and
Yeah.
they want to do the replay. I'm like, no. But I'll be right there to fix it or make you feel better until we get to the hospital.
Right. So you've been a supporter of Women's Co-op for a few years.
Yeah. Since we met.
Yeah. Women's Co-op has been in existence now for 20 years. We're celebrating our 20th anniversary this year. So
Congrats.
that's a huge milestone for us.
Absolutely.
Maybe not as big as working somewhere for 41 years, but it's pretty close. And the other thing is that we have some events that we have coming up in the near future. Painted Chair Fair.
I love
one
going
of
to
our
that.
greatest- Yes, everyone loves the Painted Chair Fair.
Yeah.
We've started a new one in the fall called the Haunted Scare Fair.
Yep.
So we always look for supporters for that as well.
Yeah.
If you could change one thing in politics, not just our district, not just here, if you could change one thing in politics, yeah, see, I threw you for that one. I knew I had that question for last.
Yeah.
What would that one thing be?
To learn how to listen to one another. A good friend of mine and colleague at the county, Derek King, said, I'm going to support you running for state, but if you hear a good idea from a Democrat, you better embrace it. I don't want you saying, no, we can't do that because it's a Democrat.
Right.
And that's a mantra I've kind of followed all of my political career. It doesn't matter who's got a good idea. If it's a good idea, it's a good idea.
Right.
And can we compromise it? Compromise is not always a dirty word. You can't bend on your principles. You can't bend on your values and your party plank. But can we get the same outcome by working together? We both think it's a good outcome. How do we get there together?
Right.
And we don't need to yell and scream and call each other names. We just need to sit down and have a conversation, civil discourse that says, hey, how do we get to that final outcome that we're both happy with? And
So it's
that's my
more
goal.
like, we hear the term quite a bit, working across the aisles. That's kind of what we
Yeah.
need to start doing in
Yeah.
our own.
Yep.
So that's kind of what we try to do at Women's Co-op is work across the aisles, so to speak.
Yeah.
We have women who are extremely, they're going through some really tough times. And so our job is to try to see them, meet them where they are, moving forward, try to give them the goals and the planning that they need to become successful.
And that's important because often those women, and sometimes the men, have children,
Right.
right? And their bad times are going to affect those children. So the fact that you guys support them, get them through that, and give them the opportunity with a hand up and skills at the end that they can go out and get a job and be successful and independent is why I love the Women's Co-op. And you've heard me say it across town before. If you want to act like the Women's Co-op, you're going to be successful.
Right.
Give people an ability to succeed, and they will.
Right.
Most of them.
So there is a rumor, a scuttlebutt that we've heard that they're going to lower the voting age to 16. Do you think that'll ever come to fruition?
I think that'd be a bad idea, right? 18 is, I think, has been settled for as long as I've been alive. I remember becoming 18 way back when and thinking, okay, I get to vote now, but it's a responsibility. And I'm not sure a 16-year-old has the wherewithal and the knowledge base and the experience to be able to make good decisions in that realm. We don't let them drink until they're 21. We don't let them buy cigarettes or other things like that until they're 18. Why would we want a 16-year-old put in that position to make that kind of decision? I think that's asking a lot of a 16-year-old. There's certainly 16-year-olds that would be better at it than some adults I know.
Right.
Right, and I think those are exceptions. But I think as a rule, 18 is fine. They're going to be held responsible as adults. A lot of them are living on their own. They should be able to vote for the policy that they think
That best affect their lives.
Best affects their life.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Steve, as always, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Yeah.
I didn't let Mia talk at all. My bad, Mia.
That's okay.
Mia, what do
Teresa
you-
never lets me talk, so
okay,
I don't.
that's
So,
okay.
Mia, what do you want to ask?
I think Val pretty much covered it. I guess my biggest question was the redistricting question, and you answered that really well. And then the working across the aisle. Has being on the Calhoun County Commission for so long given you like a unique skill set to be able to do that if and when you were to go to Lansing?
Yeah, so we've had a large majority of Republican versus Democrat since we were elected in 2010. It was 1 Republican and 6 Democrats when we went through that election, and when it turned out, it was 5-2. And it's either been 4-3 or 5-2 since then. But that doesn't mean that we don't include Democrats in what's going on. And we're always in leadership, we always have been, and we always will be as long as we're in the majority. But we think it's important that everybody be represented in the decisions we're making. So if we have something controversial, which is pretty rare at the county, but we'll reach out to everybody. It's like, where do you stand with this? Here's the proposed policy change. Do you support it? If not, what would change? It's good to have that input. And we've done that since 2010 to 2011, since I took office. So I think it's important to do that. And that's exactly what hasn't been going on in Lansing for a while now, especially the last year. It's gotten worse. No opposition testimony allowed, decisions made, boom, done. And because we got the majority, we can get it done. Well, that's probably not the way to do things.
Well, again, we thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Just make sure that you get out and vote. It's obviously very important in your community. We want to make sure that you know where to vote. So if you have a place to vote, if you're not sure, you can always call the county treasurer's office, correct?
Yes.
And they can tell you your district and where you need to vote.
Yep.
So again, thank you for joining us tonight, and we'll see you next time on Our View.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
I was supposed to ask you about early voting.
We can.
I was supposed to ask you about early voting.
We can.
He said we still got. Oh, are we
Still got
on?
time? You
Oh,
wanna
are we
ask
still
me?
on? Yes, yes. Early voting in Calhoun County.
Yep, it started last Saturday.
Okay.
And there's 2 places. They're consolidated places in Calhoun County that you can vote. So if you live in the city of Battle Creek and surrounding townships primarily that touch the city, you're going to vote at the Cool Family Center. I think that's open from 9 to 4. And if you vote or you live outside of there as a registered voter, you can go to the county building in Marshall, 3rd floor of the county commission chambers. They removed all of the pews and took over that for the 9 days of early voting, and they're open 9 to 4 as well. If you don't know where you're supposed to vote, you can go to calhouncountymi.gov and go to the clerk's website, and there's a map or it explains where you should vote. So I voted early. This is the first time we've been able to do it in Michigan, and I voted yesterday, voting early at the Cool Family Center.
Nice. Oh, goodbye.
bye.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Bye.